I purchased a faulty Xbox One S from eBay, and I don't think I should have. I only paid a grand total of £37 for it. However, the listing states, bought faulty due to liquid damage and console would not turn on. It's been opened and cleaned with isopropyl alcohol, found a short to ground on the 12-volt rail, replaced the offending MOSFET and reassembled to try. Before I could hit the power button, I heard a pop, leading me to believe that there is more faults. My honest opinion is that the motherboard and front switchboard are heavily corroded, and this console is for parts only. Have I been a little bit of a moron by buying this, knowing that somebody has attempted to repair it already? Or could it make a great video? As stupid as this is, I am gonna put power on it, and I am gonna try and power it on to see exactly what happens. So, if I do lose all of my hair, you know why it is. I've just plugged the power in. What happens in 3, 2, 1? Nothing, nada. So I can confirm that the listing is correct. The console definitely doesn't power on. And now we need to take it apart and look further as to why that is. Well, I definitely didn't expect that to happen. My prying tool has just snapped clean in half. We call that GG. Immediately, the sync button is no longer a thing. Take out these screws. I think the person who previously worked on this was the Hulk, because they have tightened these screws up a lot. Okay, immediately we can see, whilst I was unscrewing, that we have some corrosion down here, some rust, nice tasty rust. Did we get lied to? Is it a 1 terabyte? Yes, it is. I guess really the first thing to test is, are we getting 12 volts on the actual power supply? Because it could have been that the power supply didn't like the job that the previous technician had done and might have gone kaboom. So we have our multimeter, DC voltage. Do we have voltage on the connector? No, nothing at all. So the power supply itself is not providing the voltage that it needs to. Okay, if I'm being honest, I didn't have it plugged in. Should we try that again? So supposedly it's on now. Okay, yeah, 12 volts. All right, so we have 12 volts on the multimeter down here, which shows that the power supply is absolutely fine. Okay, sweet. Silly Joey, which also means that when I tested it a second ago, at the start of the video, I didn't plug the power in. So I'm gonna do that now. And again, we might have some kabooms or something. Anything? No, okay. We still get absolutely nothing on the unit itself. No power is coming into it, but this is as raw as it gets. Let's take the rest of the board out and we can start checking for shorts and see exactly what's going on. Whoever this person was who worked on this, they've left the thermal paste on. So what that tells me is that when the Xbox turned on and then they heard a bang, after fixing it, they went, nope, not gonna touch this again. So didn't really take it apart and have another look to see what caused that bang. So let's get the multimeter again and just confirm if that short has come back on the 12 volt line. Yeah, so okay, so we have a short on the 12 volt line, a 2 ohm short, but I think, to be honest with you, yeah, my probes themselves, I think is 2 ohms, so it's a dead short on the 12 volt line. So something on most probably the 12 volt rail here, but there is also quite a bit of water damage and liquid damage by the looks of it down this side. So let's pop on over to the scope and inspect the job that this technician has done. Alrighty, what do we have here? Wow, yeah, this is not looking good, is it? This is where all the RAM chips are. So these big ones here are RAM chips, and you can see we've got resistors that look like they're hanging on for dear life. But if we just try and knock them off the board, they're actually okay. If you put this in an ultrasonic cleaner, I think a lot of this would be looking all right, but I don't actually have an ultrasonic cleaner, unfortunately. I just use a toothbrush and trusty isopropyl alcohol. But yeah, a lot of this is badly damaged, but the components themselves seem to be quite steady on the board and well connected, which is good. We have some like green stuff on the fan connector here. This is one of the grounding holes for the X clamp. Every single other one seems to be okay, a nice, you know, coppery style, but this one, rust. Sometimes we have issues down here. I've seen a video of the coders recently where he had, I think it was a couple of components in this area on an Xbox One S that were quite badly corroded. I've had one as well recently where I'd replaced all of this and including these resistors and the connector here on the other side of the board, but I couldn't manage to get it working. However, this board actually looks pretty clean over here, which brings my attention to the power rails that I was just looking at. So I measured on the power connector, the in connector here, and this is where we were getting a short to ground. So it could be anything south of this on the 12 volt line. This little MOSFET here looks very suspicious. And I think this is the one that the technician who listed this on eBay had replaced. Just looking at it like that. They've done a good job. I'm not here to comment on anybody else's work. I've bought this device. I've taken the risk on to try and fix it, but that's a pretty good job, the soldering, before I say anything else, I am just going to inspect the other MOSFETs. This MOSFET is fine, seems to be anyway. I didn't check the big one. The big one is fine. This little one here is also fine. These caps, yeah, all looking okay. And even these little MOSFETs down here also seem to be all right. We just have to find which component, yeesh, this isn't looking great. I believe this is the RAM power IC U9F1. Again, could be wrong. I'm taking a mental note to say that this is filthy. So I'm just going to give this a clean with some isopropyl alcohol and maybe just get a zoom in real quick just to see if I can see anything around it. Might be giving us some red flags. What do you think on a first look basis? Do we look okay or not really? To be honest with you, I think it's all right. Let me zoom in. This microscope is amazing. I've had this now for a while and it does the job that it's intended for. Very crisp, clean images. Yeah, I think this is just, are they all burnt away? Are those, wait a minute, are any of these connected to the pads, the traces, or not? Are they just oxidized? It looks like here the traces don't even go to where they need to go to, and that's on every single one. So again, we come back with the multimeter in continuity mode just to see if we can prove that there is a connection from the chip to the trace. If I go to here and here, no. Oh no, there is continuity. Okay, fine. What about this middle one? Yeah, okay, fine. And I might as well, whilst I'm here, finish up. Fine. Yeah, okay. I think they are all okay. I think they're just a little bit oxidized. Same goes for these ones up here. Let's check on that specific MOSFET that I think was replaced by the technician, which is this one. It could potentially be that it was just a bad MOSFET. So we now switch our meter into diode mode. We are looking for a voltage drop of around about 0.4 to 0.6, usually 0.6 on these MOSFETs. If I put my probe here, what we're getting, a shorter ground. If I'm being honest, looking at the board, it's in awful condition, so it very well could be true that something else has caused it to blow. But I am going to take the risk and I'm just going to replace that MOSFET with a known good one that I have and see what happens. Now we just come in with a quick test in diode mode again. You see these are all bridged here. That is fine. It doesn't matter because they're all on the same path. If this one, for example, was bridged with these three, we'd have an issue. So multimeter again in diode mode. I'm just going to measure this. What do we get? For around about 0.6. Yep, 0.637 is exactly what we get, 0.637. So I'm now going to reassemble partially and see what happens and see if we have any explosions. Wish me luck. Okay, hard drive has been plugged in. We have the power supply plugged in, the fan and the front board connector just so that I can actually power it on. Hopefully we're going to be okay, but we are going to test. Any explosions? Hopefully not. 3, 2, 1. No power. I'm not getting anything. Okay. Interesting and kind of, I know it sounds silly, good, because I think that maybe that component, whichever is causing that now to stay off, is probably the root cause. And to be honest, I didn't even check, did I, to see if the short had gone on the 12 volt line by putting that MOSFET back. So I think Xbox One S console 1, Joey, -3. Has the short gone from the 12 volt connector? Yes, it has. Interesting. Oh, okay, I don't think I was making a good enough connection. So Joey -4. Xbox One. I'm just going to check. Has that MOSFET gone again? So the MOSFET has gone faulty again. That technician was 100% correct. Something on the board is causing that MOSFET to constantly break. I'm thinking what I might do is remove the MOSFET, taking out the circuit to relieve the short, then putting the power in to see if we can see anything getting hot on the board. Use the thermal cam to indicate where that's coming from. If not, we may have to inject voltage because the power supply could be shutting off before it even gets a chance to make something hot. I've taken the MOSFET off of the board and I'm not going to bore you, but I did try and inject. I started off with 1 volt and it's not drawing any current whatsoever. I did then scale it up to 12 volts, which I know a lot of people say that I shouldn't and that I could potentially ruin the board, but this one is almost pretty much ruined anyway. And when I injected the 12 volts, it just seems to be doing like a boot sequence. It starts off at like 34 milliamps and then goes all the way up to 300 milliamps, then back down to 200, back up to 400, then it kind of stabilizes around about 50 milliamps or so. So I think that is just a standard boot sequence. Without that MOSFET on the board, it kind of seems okay. Now, logically, I don't think there's any point in me prodding around the board for shorts, because if that were the case, if I had a shorted component on the board now, then I would have a shorted 12 volt line. So I think what I'm going to do is put another MOSFET on, see if the 12 volt line is shorted after I put the MOSFET on, which I don't think it was. And then I'm just going to inject 1 volt instead of putting the power supply in, and see if any other components get hot, potentially. The theory behind this might be making no sense, and you might be watching going, Joey, what are you talking about? You know nothing. You're probably right, but let's give it a test. I've just replaced the MOSFET. It might sound silly, but I'm also going to check the bigger MOSFETs that we have, because it might be one of those. For some reason, I didn't check them. So meet it in diode mode, Joey, not continuity mode. The big MOSFETs are okay. If I measure the MOSFET I've just replaced, so as you can see, 0.617, and if I measure the 12 volt line, we've got 0.4 volts of resistance now, which should mean that we no longer have our short. Yep, which we don't. That's ground. Yeah, we no longer have our short, which is good. So again, instead of powering this up, I'm now going to inject 1 volt on the 12 volt connector here and see what happens. Okay, here we go. 1 volt is being injected and we have no amp draw whatsoever. I'm just going to check to see and make sure that the MOSFET is okay, which it is. I'm going to put it up to 3 volts, just see what happens. Still, we get no amp draw at all. And MOSFET, as you can see, it's still fine, 0.6. I am going to put it to 7. Please do not follow what I'm doing. I am a noob, and this is for entertainment purposes rather than me teaching anything. So 7 volts. Okay, we have about 15 milliamps, so 0.015 amps of a current draw. Do we still have that MOSFET working? Yes, we do. Okay, 0.6. I'm going to put it to 10. Let's put 10 volts into the connector, and what happens? 36 milliamps, 35. Okay, I think it's blown. I'm just going to check. 0.1 volts is what's now showing on this one. So what does that mean? Is it like partially blown or something? What's going on there? Trying again. And our short is back. So this must be shorted now. It's showing is 0.1. What about the MOSFET below that? 0.6, 0.1. Usually if this was shorted, it would be 0.00, you know, but for some reason it's showing 0.1. And again, just to confirm, our short back on the 12 volt line, yes it is 3 ohms short, but again leads are about 2, so just over a 1 ohm. Okay, so our short is back. Let me test on this MOSFET. Okay, so the MOSFET is coming up as 110 ohms, so it's not showing that the MOSFET is actually shorted itself. But these capacitors are shorted. I wonder if I put the 10 volts back in, whether I'll be able to see anything getting hot. Okay, so going back in with 10 volts, I've now got my flare cam out to see if anything other than this MOSFET is getting particularly hot. I will test on it as well, just to see. Oh no, wow. Yeah, it's definitely that MOSFET getting warm. Anything else on the board getting warm? Other than the APU is getting quite hot, but the MOSFET is reaching 50, 60, 70 degrees Celsius. What I thought we could do is just put a drop of isopropyl alcohol, because that's getting hot very, very quickly, to see if it is definitely that MOSFET that is causing the issues here. I think it is, if I'm being honest, but yeah, look at that. Nothing else around it either, just seems to be that. What about this chip here? Anything around here? No. And then as soon as we remove this MOSFET, the short's going to be gone. Look at this, it's getting very hot, very, very quickly. I'm going to be 100% honest and transparent with you. I don't know what to do in this scenario. I've never really had something where you put a component and then it keeps blowing that same component due to another potential short on the board. The only other thing I can see getting hot is the APU. So I don't know if the APU has gone, which is then causing the MOSFET to blow every single time. But if you want to get involved yourself, feel free to leave a comment down below explaining if there's any troubleshooting methods that I could potentially use to find out why that specific component, regardless of the fact that they're okay, because I'm taking them from donors, I know they're fine and they're measuring okay, but why does it keep shorting when we apply power to the 12 volt line? I'll either do a follow-up video or maybe a live stream. Sorry, I couldn't fix this one. If you enjoyed this type of video, I'm sure you'll enjoy this video over here, where I try and fix some more Xbox One S consoles. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.